The cargo bay doors sealed shut with a soft hiss as the last container of medical supplies found its place in the hold. Alex Reed wiped sweat from his forehead and looked around at his crew loading the final shipment. The Defiant Dawn carried enough medicine to save thousands of lives on the frontier colonies, but out here in the Outer Rim, that cargo made them a target for every pirate in the sector. Tom Murphy crawled out from under a loading crane, oil stains covering his work clothes. The old engineer had been with Alex for 5 years, and his weathered hands could fix anything that broke on their ship. He walked over to Alex and shook his head with concern. "These trade routes are getting more dangerous every week," Tom said, quietly. 3 more human ships got hit by raiders just last month. Word is they're getting bolder. Alex nodded and watched his crew finish their work. Lisa Wong checked cargo manifests on her data pad, while 2 other crew members secured the containers. Everyone moved with practiced efficiency, but Alex could see the worry in their eyes. Human merchants had become favorite targets for the pirate fleets that controlled much of this space. "We stick to the planned route," Alex decided. "The colonies need these supplies, and we're not letting a bunch of pirates scare us away from doing our job." The Defiant Dawn looked like any other cargo freighter traveling between the inner systems and frontier worlds. Her hull showed years of wear from space travel, and her engines were the standard model used by thousands of merchant ships. Nothing about her appearance suggested she was anything special or worth particular attention from pirates. 2 days into their journey, the ship's communication system came alive with an emergency signal. Alex hurried to the bridge where Lisa was already analyzing the transmission. The message was weak and filled with static, but they could make out the important details. "It's a passenger liner," Lisa reported. "The Star Wanderer carrying about 200 civilians. They're reporting engine failure and life support problems. Their location is about 6 hours off our current course." Alex studied the navigation display. Changing course would delay their delivery and take them through a part of space known for pirate activity. But leaving civilians to die was not something he could live with. "Set course for their position," he ordered, "and send word to any other ships in the area. Maybe someone closer can help." Tom looked uncomfortable as he worked at his engineering station. "Alex, something feels wrong about this signal. The frequency modulation is off somehow. It doesn't match standard emergency protocols." Before Alex could respond, the ship's sensors started screaming warnings. 3 large contacts appeared on the display, moving fast toward the Defiant Dawn. Lisa's fingers flew over her controls as she tried to identify the approaching vessels. 3 ships decloaking off our starboard side," she announced. "Configuration matches Crimson Fleet raiders. They're powering weapons and jamming our communications." The main screen filled with the image of a massive alien wearing the red armor typical of the Crimson Fleet. His face was scarred from countless battles, and his voice carried the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. "Human vessel, this is Commander Brutus Kane of the Crimson Fleet. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Surrender your cargo peacefully and your crew will not be harmed." Alex stepped forward, keeping his voice steady despite the situation. "Commander Kane, we're carrying medical supplies for civilian colonies. Surely you can find more valuable targets than a simple cargo hauler." Kane's laugh was harsh and ugly. "Human ships have become very profitable lately. Your people carry the best technology and rarely put up much of a fight. We've been hunting your kind for months, and every capture has been easier than the last." The raider ships moved into attack formation around the Defiant Dawn. Alex could see boarding pods extending from their hulls, ready to attach to his ship and cut through the outer plating. His crew looked to him for orders, waiting to see how he would handle their desperate situation. "We have women and civilians aboard." Alex tried one more time. "Take what cargo you want, but let us go afterward. All humans are coming with us. Kane replied. "Your species brings good prices in the slave markets. Consider this your contribution to our cause." Alex closed his eyes for a moment, then looked at each of his crew members. Tom nodded grimly from his engineering station. Lisa's hands hovered over her control panel, ready for whatever came next. The others took positions around the bridge, their movements careful and deliberate. "Very well, Commander Kane," Alex said slowly. "But I want you to remember something. We tried to warn you." Kane's expression showed confusion, but before he could respond, Alex turned to his crew and spoke a single phrase that changed everything. "Protocol." 7! The word seemed to have magical power over the crew. Instead of panic or fear, Alex saw only cold determination in their faces. Tom's fingers began dancing over controls that had nothing to do with standard ship operations. Lisa pulled up displays that definitely did not belong on a simple cargo vessel. The other crew members moved to stations that should not have existed on a merchant ship. "What are you humans doing?" Kane demanded, but Alex simply smiled. "Getting ready to show you why attacking human ships has become such a bad idea lately." The boarding pods attached to the Defiant Dawn's hull with metallic clangs that echoed through the corridors. Cutting tools began working on the outer plating, and within minutes, the raiders would be inside. But instead of preparing to fight or hide, Alex's crew calmly went about their business as if nothing unusual was happening. Kane watched through his ship's cameras as his boarding parties prepared to breach the human vessel. Everything was going according to plan, just like the dozens of other human ships they had captured. Soon he would have another cargo hold full of valuable supplies and another group of humans to sell in the slave markets. But something felt different about this capture. The humans were too calm, too ready for what was coming. Most merchant crews would be screaming and begging by now, not quietly working at their stations like they were preparing for a routine docking procedure. Kane dismissed his concerns as paranoia. After all, what could a simple cargo ship do against 3 fully armed raider vessels? He was about to find out. Metal screamed against metal as the raider cutting tools finished their work. The airlock doors burst open and armed pirates poured into the Defiant Dawn, weapons ready for resistance that never came. Instead of panicked merchants hiding behind barricades, they found the human crew calmly working at their stations as if nothing had happened. Alex walked toward the boarding party with his hands visible but not raised in surrender. His casual attitude seemed to confuse the raiders, who had expected either cowering fear or desperate violence. Behind him, Tom continued running diagnostics on systems that hummed quietly in the background. "Welcome aboard," Alex said politely. "I assume you want to inspect our cargo. Follow me, and I'll show you to the main holds." The raider lieutenant leading the boarding party looked around suspiciously. His species had sensitive hearing, and something about the ship's background noise bothered him. The power systems sounded too robust for a simple merchant vessel, and there were electronic signatures that did not match standard civilian equipment. "Where is the rest of your crew?" the lieutenant demanded. "Working," Alex replied simply. "We have a schedule to maintain, even under these circumstances." Commander Kane's voice crackled through the raider's communication device. "Stop wasting time with conversation. Get to their cargo holds and start the transfer. I want everything valuable loaded onto our ships within 2 hours." Alex led the boarding party through corridors that seemed normal at first glance but showed subtle signs of modification. The walls were thicker than standard merchant construction, and access panels were sealed with military-grade locks rather than simple civilian fastenings. Emergency lighting strips followed unusual patterns that suggested alternate power routing. The main cargo hold impressed even the experienced raiders with its contents. Container after container of medical supplies filled the space, each one marked with symbols indicating rare and valuable pharmaceutical compounds. Surgical equipment worth millions of credits sat alongside terraforming gear that frontier colonies would pay anything to obtain. "This is better than we expected," the lieutenant reported to Kane. "They're carrying enough valuable cargo to fund our operations for months." Kane's image appeared on the hold's communication screen, his scarred face showing satisfaction. "Excellent. Begin immediate transfer to our cargo bays, and remember to check every container. Humans sometimes hide their most valuable items inside fake medical supplies." The raiders began their looting with practiced efficiency, but several things troubled the more experienced pirates. The cargo containers were surprisingly heavy, requiring loading equipment that seemed overpowered for simple medical supplies. When they tried to move some of the larger crates, the deck plating showed no stress, despite weights that should have caused structural damage to a normal merchant ship. Lisa worked quietly at what appeared to be a standard navigation console. Near the cargo hold entrance, her fingers moved across the controls with the precision of someone who had performed these same actions many times before. Deep within the ship's hull, systems that had been dormant began drawing power from reactors that were far more advanced than anything found on civilian vessels. "What's in the sealed sections?" Kane demanded from his ship. "My sensors show several areas of your vessel that remain locked down." Alex shrugged apologetically. "Hazardous biotechnology. We need special permits and safety equipment to handle that cargo. I wouldn't want your people to get hurt by accidental exposure to experimental compounds." The explanation satisfied Kane's greed, but not his caution. Something about the entire situation felt wrong, but the valuable cargo kept his attention focused on profit rather than security concerns. His crews reported finding medical equipment worth more than their last 10 raids combined. Tom moved through the ship's lower levels, ostensibly checking environmental systems, but actually preparing equipment that had been carefully hidden for months. His experienced hands activated circuits that had never appeared on any inspection record, and weapons that had been disguised as industrial machinery began their startup sequences. "How long have you been running this route?" one of the raiders asked Alex. "About 2 years," Alex replied honestly. "We've had good relationships with the frontier colonies, and they pay well for reliable supply deliveries." What he did not mention was that those same colonies had been reporting increasing raider attacks for the past 6 months. Human merchant vessels had become prime targets, with entire crews disappearing into slave markets while their cargoes funded pirate operations throughout the Outer Rim. The raiders worked quickly to transfer everything valuable to their own ships. They loaded medical supplies, surgical equipment, and terraforming gear without realizing that much of what they were stealing was not what it appeared to be. Containers marked as pharmaceutical supplies contained components for weapon systems. Terraforming equipment had been modified to serve as deployment platforms for military hardware. "Your people seem very calm for merchants being robbed," the raider lieutenant observed. Alex smiled slightly. "We've learned that fighting pirates usually ends badly for everyone involved. Better to lose some cargo than lose our lives." Kane's voice interrupted their conversation. "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from your ship. What kind of power plant are you running?" "Standard fusion reactor," Alex answered. "Maybe a bit larger than most cargo haulers use, but we need the extra power for our refrigeration systems. Some of our medical supplies require very specific temperature control." The explanation was technically true, but did not tell the whole story. The Defiant Dawn's power systems could generate enough energy to run a small military base, and her reactor had been shielded to hide its true output from casual sensor sweeps. As the transfer continued, more of the raiders began noticing things that did not quite fit their expectations. The ship's internal gravity remained perfectly stable, even with massive cargo containers being moved around. The hull showed no flex or stress, despite the dramatic weight redistributions. Most telling of all, none of the human crew showed any. signs of the fear or desperation that usually accompanied pirate raids. "Something is wrong here," the lieutenant reported privately to Kane. "These humans are too prepared, too calm. It's like they were expecting us." Kane's response showed his growing impatience. "Just finish the transfer and get back to the ships. We've wasted enough time on paranoid speculation." But the lieutenant's concerns were justified. Throughout the ship, the human crew continued their careful preparations while maintaining the appearance of helpless merchants. Systems that had been hidden for months powered up in sequence, weapons that looked like cargo equipment rotated into firing positions, and communication arrays that did not appear on any blueprint began transmitting coded signals into deep space. Alex watched it all happen with the satisfaction of someone whose careful planning was finally paying off. The raiders had taken the bait completely, focusing so intently on their valuable prize that they had missed every warning sign. "Commander Kane," Alex said into the cargo hold communicator, "I want to give you one last chance to reconsider this attack." Kane's laughter filled the hold. "Reconsider? You're in no position to make threats, human. Your ship is surrounded. Your cargo is being transferred to my vessels, and your crew will soon be joining our slave inventory." Alex nodded slowly. "I tried to warn you. Don't say later that we didn't give you the chance to walk away." The words sent a chill through some of the more experienced raiders, but Kane dismissed the warning as empty bravado from a defeated enemy. He had no way of knowing that he had just made the worst mistake of his long career as a pirate. Everything changed when Raider Sergeant Vex accidentally backed into what he thought was an environmental control panel. His armored shoulder struck the surface with enough force to crack the fake covering, revealing the advanced military electronics hidden underneath. Instead of simple atmosphere regulation circuits, exposed wiring showed targeting computers and weapon control systems that belonged on a warship, not a cargo hauler. "Lieutenant, you need to see this," Vex called out, staring at the revealed equipment. "This isn't merchant ship technology." The raider lieutenant hurried over and examined the damaged panel. His experienced eyes immediately recognized military-grade components that cost more than most pirates earned in a year. Fiber optic cables carried data at rates far beyond civilian requirements, and the processing units showed specifications that matched frontline combat vessels. Alex watched the discovery with calm interest, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Around the cargo hold, his crew continued their work with the same professional detachment they had shown throughout the entire boarding operation. Tom Murphy emerged from a maintenance shaft, wiping his hands on a cloth that came away, stained with lubricants used only in military weapon systems. "What is this?" the lieutenant demanded, pointing at the exposed electronics. Alex stepped closer and examined the damaged panel with mild concern. "That looks like a navigation computer backup system. I hope your man didn't damage anything important." Those components are expensive to replace, but the lieutenant was not fooled by the casual explanation. His handheld scanner showed energy readings that no merchant vessel should produce, and the circuit pathways led to sections of the ship that did not appear on any civilian design schematics. More troubling still, the hidden electronics were connected to systems throughout the ship that the raiders had not even noticed. Commander Kane's voice came through the communication system with growing suspicion. "Report your status immediately. My sensors are detecting unusual activity aboard the human vessel." The lieutenant activated his communicator, but kept his weapon trained on Alex. "Sir, we've discovered hidden military equipment. This ship is not what it appears to be." The word sent a wave of activity through both vessels as Kane processed the implications. If the humans were not simple merchants, then everything about this capture had been based on false assumptions. His sensors began active scans of the defiant dawn, and what they revealed made his blood run cold. "All boarding parties return to your ships immediately," Kane ordered. "We are dealing with a military vessel." But Alex simply smiled and shook his head. I'm afraid it's too late for that, Commander Kane. You see, the Defiant Dawn is what we call a Q ship. We're designed to look like helpless merchants while carrying enough firepower to destroy entire pirate fleets. The revelation struck the raiders like a physical blow. Tom Murphy stopped pretending to be a simple engineer and began working controls that brought weapon systems online throughout the ship. Lisa Wong's navigation console transformed into a tactical command center as hidden displays emerged from concealed compartments. Even the cargo containers began shifting and reconfiguring as their false exteriors fell away to reveal military equipment. "Your Terran Defense Force," the lieutenant said, his voice filled with the understanding of someone who had just realized he was standing in the middle of an enemy warship. "Special Operations Division," Alex confirmed. "We've been hunting raider fleets for 6 months, using ourselves as bait to draw you into situations where we could study your tactics and capabilities." The truth was even worse than the lieutenant had feared. Every member of the crew dropped their merchant personas and revealed themselves as combat veterans. Tom Murphy had served as chief weapons officer on 3 different destroyers before volunteering for this undercover assignment. Lisa Wong had commanded her own battlecruiser until she requested transfer to Q-ship operations. The entire crew consisted of elite military personnel who had spent years fighting pirates and enemy fleets. Kane's voice shook with rage as he spoke through the communicators. "You deceived us. This entire operation was a trap." "The best kind," Alex agreed. "We've been broadcasting your fleet's position and specifications to Terran patrol groups since the moment you attacked us. Every ship in this sector now knows exactly where to find the notorious Crimson Fleet." The ship around them began transforming as hidden systems activated throughout the hull. Walls slid aside to reveal weapon storage areas filled with equipment that could outfit a small army. The cargo bay's ceiling opened to show missile launchers and plasma cannons that had been disguised as structural supports. Even the floor plates retracted to expose torpedo tubes and defensive systems. "This is impossible," Vex whispered, watching medical containers unfold into automated gun turrets. "How did you hide all of this equipment?" Tom looked up from his weapon controls with professional pride. "Months of careful preparation. Every system on this ship has been designed to serve dual purposes. Our medical supplies are real, but the containers also hold military equipment. Our terraforming gear actually works, but it can also deploy combat drones and establish battlefield communications networks." The psychological impact on the raiders was devastating. They had spent months believing that human merchants were easy targets who carried valuable cargo and offered little resistance. The reality was that they had been walking into carefully prepared traps, facing professional soldiers who had been studying their every move. Kane tried desperately to salvage the situation. "All units, return to the ships immediately. We're dealing with a military deception operation." But Alex activated the ship's internal communication system, and his voice reached every raider throughout the vessel. "I'm afraid your people won't be leaving just yet, Commander. You see, we still need to complete our mission." The cargo hold's main display activated to show tactical information that made the raiders' situation clear. The Defiant Dawn was not just a disguised warship, but a vessel specifically designed to hunt pirates. Her weapons could penetrate raider shields with ease, her sensors could track multiple targets simultaneously, and her defenses could withstand attacks from ships 3 times her size. "What is your mission?" the lieutenant asked, though he already feared the answer. Alex looked at each of the raiders in the cargo hold, his expression showing the cold professionalism that had made human military forces respected and feared throughout the galaxy. "To send a message to every pirate fleet in the Outer Rim. The age of easy human targets is over." Warning lights began flashing throughout the ship as weapon systems came online and targeting computers locked onto the raider vessels. The Defiant Dawn was shedding her disguise completely. transforming from apparent prey into an apex predator that had been waiting for exactly this moment. Kane's final transmission carried the desperation of someone who had realized his fatal mistake too late. This is impossible. Intelligence reports said human merchants were defenseless. Intelligence reports, Alex replied calmly, that we spent considerable effort making sure you received. The first plasma cannon blast from the Defiant Dawn tore through the nearest Raider ship's shields like they were made of paper. Commander Kane watched in horror as his supposedly superior vessel shuddered under the impact of weapons that should not have existed on a civilian cargo hauler. The human Q ship had revealed her true nature, and the Crimson Fleet found themselves facing an enemy they were not prepared to fight. "Return fire! All weapons on the human ship!" Kane screamed into his communicator, but his crew's response came back filled with panic and confusion. "Sir, our weapons can't penetrate their defensive screens. Their hull configuration doesn't match any known merchant vessel design. We're reading military-grade armor plating and shield generators that rival our own capital ships." The second Raider vessel tried to break away from the engagement, but Lisa Wong's targeting systems tracked its movement with deadly precision. Missiles launched from concealed ports along the Defiant Dawn's hull, streaking toward the fleeing pirate ship with guidance systems that adjusted for every evasive maneuver. Tom Murphy worked his weapon controls with the skill of someone who had been fighting ship-to-ship battles for 20 years. His plasma cannons fired in carefully timed sequences that overwhelmed the Raiders' defensive capabilities, while his torpedo launchers sent waves of explosives toward vulnerable points in their hull designs. "This is impossible," Kane muttered, watching his fleet being systematically destroyed by what he had thought was helpless prey. Intelligence said human cargo ships were easy targets with minimal defenses. Alex's voice came through the communication system with calm authority. "Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to believe, Commander. We've been feeding false information to pirate networks for months, making sure you thought human. Merchants were defenseless and valuable targets. The battle was turning into a complete disaster for the Crimson Fleet. Their ships had been designed for hit-and-run attacks on genuine merchant vessels, not prolonged combat with military opponents. The Defiant Dawn's weapons were not just more powerful than expected, but specifically calibrated to defeat the shield frequencies and armor configurations used by pirate fleets." Kane realized that his boarding parties were still trapped aboard, the human vessel, potentially giving him leverage in negotiations. "Surrender immediately or I'll order my people to execute your crew members." But the response from his own boarding party surprised him. Lieutenant Zorn's voice came through the communicator with defeated resignation. "Commander, the humans have us completely surrounded. Their crew members are not helpless merchants but professional soldiers. We're outnumbered and outgunned. The psychological warfare was proving as effective as the physical combat. The Raiders had expected to find terrified civilians begging for mercy, but instead faced military professionals who showed no fear or panic despite being boarded by enemy forces. Every human crew member moved with practiced efficiency, treating the pirate attack as just another training exercise. "How many Q ships are operating in this sector?" Kane demanded, beginning to understand the scope of the deception. Alex smiled grimly as he watched his weapons tear apart the second Raider vessel. "Enough to hunt down every pirate fleet that has been preying on human merchants. We've been tracking your operations for months, learning your tactics and identifying your bases." The third Raider ship attempted a desperate ramming attack, hoping to cause enough damage to the Q ship to allow the others to escape. But Tom's defensive systems were ready for the maneuver. Point defense turrets emerged from hidden positions all over the Defiant Dawn's hull, filling space with a wall of plasma fire that shredded the attacking vessel before it could reach ramming distance. Kane's flagship was now alone against an opponent that had proven superior in every category of combat capability. His shields were failing, his weapons could not penetrate the human defenses, and his crew was reporting critical system failures throughout the ship. "We surrender!" Kane broadcast on all frequencies. "Cease fire! We surrender!" But Alex was not finished with his demonstration. The Q-ship's weapons continued their methodical destruction of the raider vessel's offensive capabilities, disabling gun turrets and missile launchers, while leaving life support and propulsion systems intact. The message was clear. The humans could have destroyed Kane's ship completely, but chose to show mercy. "Your surrender is noted, Commander Kane," Alex finally responded. "But I'm afraid the terms are not negotiable. You and your surviving crew will serve as messengers to carry word of what happens to pirates who attack human vessels." The boarding party aboard the Defiant Dawn found themselves being escorted to secure holding areas by crew members who moved with military precision. Instead of the terrified merchants they had expected to capture, they were now prisoners of soldiers who had been planning this operation for months. Tom emerged from his weapons station and walked over to Alex with satisfaction. "All raider offensive capabilities have been neutralized. Their remaining ship is disabled but functional enough to limp back to whatever hole they came from." Lisa looked up from her tactical displays with approval. "Terran patrol fleets are responding to our broadcast. 3 battle groups are moving to intercept any other raider ships that might be operating in this sector." The scope of the human operation was becoming clear to Kane as he listened to the communications between the Q-ship and military command. This had not been a random encounter, but part of a coordinated campaign to eliminate pirate threats throughout the Outer Rim. Human merchants had not been easy targets, but bait in carefully laid traps. "How long have you been planning this?" Kane asked over the communicator. Alex considered the question as he watched damage reports from the raider vessels. "Since the first human colony ship was attacked 6 months ago. Your people made the mistake of targeting civilians, and that gave our government the excuse it needed to authorize military action. The political implications were staggering. The Crimson Fleet and other pirate organizations had been operating under the assumption that human space was poorly defended and that merchant vessels traveled without military escort. The reality was that human space was protected by invisible guardians who looked like easy targets until it was too late. What happens now?" Kane's voice carried the defeat of someone who had lost everything. Alex looked around at his crew as they secured their ship and prepared for the next phase of their mission. "Now you get to deliver a message to every pirate fleet in known space. Tell them that the age of easy human targets is over. Tell them that we gave you fair warning before. You chose to make us your enemy. The battle was over, but the war against piracy was just beginning. The Defiant Dawn had proven that human ingenuity and military capability could turn apparent weakness into devastating strength. Commander Kane and his surviving crew would carry that message back to pirate havens throughout the galaxy. "Don't say you weren't cautioned," Alex added as his crew began preparations for their next assignment. 3 hours after the battle ended, Commander Kane found himself aboard his damaged flagship with a skeleton crew and a cargo hold full of bitter lessons. The Defiant Dawn floated nearby, once again disguised as a simple merchant vessel. But Kane would never again mistake her innocent appearance for actual vulnerability. Alex's voice came through the communication system with the tone of someone delivering a final judgment. "Commander Kane, your ship's engines are functional enough to reach the nearest neutral port. Your weapon systems have been permanently disabled, and your navigation computers have been programmed with safe passage routes that will take you away from human shipping lanes." Kane looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew members. These hardened pirates who had terrorized merchant vessels throughout the Outer Rim now showed the hollow expressions of those who had learned too late that they had been hunting predators disguised as prey. "Why are you letting us go?" Kane asked. Your people have every right to execute us for piracy and slave trading." The answer came not from Alex, but from Lisa Wong, whose voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded warships in actual combat. "Because dead pirates can't deliver messages. We need you alive to tell every raider fleet in the galaxy what happens when they target human vessels." The Defiant Dawn's main communication array powered up with enough strength to broadcast across multiple sectors simultaneously. Alex appeared on screens throughout pirate space, his image transmitted to every known raider base and criminal haven. Behind him stood his crew, no longer pretending to be helpless merchants, but clearly identified as military professionals. "This message is for every pirate organization currently operating in human space or targeting human vessels," Alex began. "The ship you're looking at appears to be a simple cargo hauler carrying medical supplies to frontier colonies. 6 hours. Ago, 3 raider vessels attacked this ship, expecting to find defenseless merchants and valuable cargo." The broadcast showed tactical recordings of the entire battle, displaying how quickly the supposed merchant vessel had transformed into a military predator. Pirates throughout the galaxy watched in stunned silence as raider ships were systematically destroyed by weapons that should not have existed on a civilian freighter. "The Defiant Dawn is what human military forces call a Q-ship," Alex continued. "We are disguised warships operating throughout the trade routes, indistinguishable from genuine merchant vessels until someone makes the mistake of attacking us." Kane listened to the broadcast with growing understanding of how completely his people had been deceived. The human government had not simply increased patrols or added escorts to their merchant fleets. Instead, they had turned their apparent weakness into a trap that would destroy any pirate foolish enough to take the bait. "How many of these Q-ships are you operating?" Kane asked over a private channel. Tom Murphy answered from his engineering station, where he was overseeing repairs to systems that had never appeared on any merchant vessel blueprint. "Enough to patrol every major trade route in human space, and more are being commissioned every month." The scope of the deception was staggering. For 6 months, pirate fleets had been attacking what they thought were helpless human merchants, never realizing that some of those vessels were military traps waiting for exactly such attacks. Every successful raid had provided intelligence about pirate tactics and capabilities while allowing the Q-ships to perfect their disguises. Alex's broadcast continued with information that sent chills through criminal organizations across the galaxy. "This Q-ship operation is not an isolated incident. Human intelligence services have been tracking pirate activities throughout the Outer Rim, identifying bases, supply routes, and command structures. Every attack on human vessels has been recorded, analyzed, and added to target lists for future military operations." The psychological impact was exactly what the human military had intended. Pirates who had grown bold attacking apparently defenseless merchants now had to consider whether their next target might be a disguised warship crewed by professional soldiers. The uncertainty would paralyze criminal operations and make piracy a far more dangerous profession. Lisa worked at her tactical station, uploading data files to every communication network that pirates used to coordinate their activities. "We're transmitting complete specifications for identifying Q-ships versus genuine merchant vessels," she announced. "Consider it a professional courtesy." But Kane realized immediately that the information was useless. If the humans could disguise military vessels so perfectly that experienced pirates could not tell the difference, then any technical specifications could be countered by better camouflage. The Q-ships would continue to be invisible until the moment they revealed their true nature. "This is our final warning to all pirate organizations," Alex concluded his broadcast. "Human space is no longer an easy target for raiders and slavers. Continue attacking our vessels and you will face the consequences. We tried to resolve this situation through diplomacy and trade agreements, But you chose to make war on civilian populations. The broadcast ended with tactical data showing the current positions of 12 Terran battle fleets moving toward known pirate strongholds. The message was clear. The Q-ship program was only the beginning of a larger military campaign that would eliminate piracy as a threat to human commerce. Kane's communications system activated one final time as the Defiant Dawn prepared to continue her journey to the frontier colonies. Alex's voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute certainty. Commander Kane, you and your surviving crew members are now living proof that attacking human vessels has consequences. Spread the word to every criminal organization you encounter. Tell them that we gave fair warning before they chose to make enemies of humanity. The Raider flagship's engines engaged with reluctant power, carrying Kane and his crew toward an uncertain future in a galaxy where their profession had suddenly become far more dangerous. Behind them, the Defiant Dawn resumed her disguise as a simple cargo hauler and continued toward her original destination. But Kane knew the truth that would haunt him for the rest of his life. That innocent-looking merchant ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets, crewed by soldiers who had been waiting patiently for pirates foolish enough to attack. The age of easy human targets was indeed over. Alex watched the Raider ship disappear into hyperspace, then turned to his crew with satisfaction. "Tom, how long until we reach the colony?" 6 hours if we maintain current speed," Tom replied, already working to conceal the military systems that had just saved their lives. "Good. Lisa, send word to command that the demonstration was successful, and prepare our next set of false cargo manifests. If I know pirates, Kane's story will only make them more curious about what human ships are really carrying." The Defiant. Dawn flew onward through space, looking for all the world like a helpless cargo hauler carrying medical supplies to desperate colonists. But any pirate who made the mistake of attacking her would learn the same lesson that had cost Commander Kane his entire fleet. Don't say you weren't cautioned.